everybody. And thank you, Deepika and Kedar, for being here for this. This is a session of many firsts for me. One of the first times I'm actually moderating a session. Second, that too with two dear friends on stage. And for sure, never had a co-moderator like Ragini. So looking forward to that as well. Before we get into the topic, the topic that we're going to talk about is really around nurturing leadership. And one very interesting thing is the words nurturing and leadership typically don't get used together, right? When you talk about leadership, what comes to mind is leadership is about command and control, right? It's directive flowing from the armed forces and of course into the corporate world where the leader talks and everybody else does, right? So that's the traditional way how things have happened. Of course, over the years, that has also evolved and that's also changed, hopefully for the better. And nurturing, if you look at it as a word, is typically associated with, anyone? What is? Children. How do you bring up children? And the other interesting one more? Gardening. Plants, right? So nurture plants and of course nurture children. So when you put these two words together, they seem to be different sides of the coin, so to speak. But actually we believe that they can very peacefully coexist. And indeed they must peacefully coexist so that we can do better at what we do for ourselves, for our teams, and eventually impacting the business as well. So that's really the context and the thought that sort of made us write this book. So me and my wife, we have co-authored a book called The Nurturing Quotient, where we use NQ as like an IQ and EQ, and NQ as a measure of how much do you nurture yourself and nurture others. So that's really what we will talk about. And what's the fundamental premise here? The premise is today's leaders face a lot of challenges, right? There are manifold challenges that we all face, and all of these challenges take a toll on us and suck out our energy, right? And what we need to do is we need to periodically put back that energy into ourselves for our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. And if we are able to put that energy back into us, we are able to nurture ourselves, perform to our potential, and we are therefore able to nurture others. So that's really where this concept is coming from. And we spoke to over 100 CEOs on what do they do to nurture themselves and others. And the book contains anecdotal examples and best practices as shared by these leaders. Now, when we spoke to them about the challenges, they fell into 4 buckets, right? The challenges were around what are the macroeconomic challenges, right? Russia-Ukraine war has an impact on crude prices, on the laminate costs, directly impacting the consumer, right? To all the way to business challenges. Models of business are evolving. The third, most important, people challenges. You're working with multi-generational workforces, you're working with people with different aspirations, so how do you manage that? And last but not the least, people challenges, right? Ultimately, we are human beings first before we are a managing director or a president or a director. So we all also grapple with people challenges and personal challenges. So this is where the thought came from. And this is where I would request my co-moderator, Ragini, to ask her first question. First for you as well.
Hello again, everyone. For those of you who don't know me yet, I'm Ragini, your virtual co-host for this session. I'll be here to keep things lively, guide the flow of our conversation, and of course, keep the energy up as we go along. Really glad to be with you all once again. So, let's dive right in. Here is the first question for our panelists. What are some of the challenges you face as a leader in today's world?
So she clearly felt that we are not good enough to energize and engage the panel. But yeah, that's the question for you.
What are the challenges you face in today's world?
As a leader.
Right. I think you can't expect much from AI engine, which is just learning. He had already said that we are living in an uncertain world. And the world today is, of course, it became, if you remember the acronyms, it used to be VUCA world. It has become BANI since the time of COVID. So there is a gentleman in the Western world who gets up early in the morning and decides to do something. The rest of the world goes crazy, thinking of how to look at the macroeconomic impact of his decision and so on and so forth. And then, of course, there are populist measures going on with GST. So I'm sure all of you have been impacted by the GST conversation last 22nd September onwards. So, but that's not all, right? Macroeconomic changes, business systems have always been challenging. What's changing today is technology on one hand and the generation that's coming into the job market on the other. Consumers are, of course, have become far too experimental than they used to be. Cost of building brands has gone through the roof, and the channels of purchase that we do, from GT to Q-commerce are also disrupting. So within all these disruptive forces, how do you build a business that's really sustainable is the biggest challenge. And during that, how do you take care of your people is the other side of the coin. So those are the two in my opinion.
Thanks, Kedar. Deepika, you want to add something?
I think this is like a brutally discussed question, so nothing more to add.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And, so with these challenges which are there, right, like I said, these challenges sort of take a toll on leaders, and that's why we talk about the concept of nurturing self and others. And when you look at nurturing self, we really talk about it in 4 domains, which is body, mind, heart, and soul. And in each of them, we go on to explain, what one could do. So, for example, taking care of the body is really about not just physical activity, but it is about what you put into your body, how many hours of sleep do you get, right? So, all of those adds up to your physical well-being. Mental well-being is, are you keeping your mind sharp? In the sense of, are you listening to podcasts? Are you reading enough books? When is the last time you learned a skill? That's something that we talk about in sharpening the mind. The heart, which is the emotional well-being, is all about, do you have a passion? Do you connect with people? And the spiritual well-being is, do I have a larger purpose by which I live? And how do I actively contribute to the community? So these are some of the ways in which we could nurture ourselves along the 4 dimensions. Maybe I'll start with you, Deepika, in terms of some practices that you follow to nurture yourself on any of these.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, first of all, thank you for picking it up. Because I think that, like generally in India, and I don't find this across a lot of other cultures, but there is, you just constantly are trying to optimize everything, and actually nurturing yourself, at least when I was growing up, wasn't a virtue. It was about how could you get the max out of yourself. So I think more than what I do, I mean, I'll share what I do, but I think more than what I do, I think my reflection has been learning not to do what I used to do. So I think it took me a while to realize that the way you are in your personal life actually just bleeds into your professional life. Because you just operate from, it's how you grow up, right? It's how you're told to grow up. And so you just assume you can handle everything. And at some point you realize that that's not true. So I think that my big reflection has been that you do need to. I feel that's the big thing that everybody knows how. In terms of what I specifically do, I think that, I guess it depends on the person, but I just play by the day. It's what I feel like. So if I have to look at the tools in my arsenal, it would probably be a meditation, like I love Vipassana. So it would be, but there are days when I can't sit that still. So then those days you want to hit something instead. So, then you do that. And
what
then,
do you hit? Or who do you hit?
Not on Karwa Chauth. But anyway, so yeah, so I think I think the important thing I've realized is to just take a minute and sort of say that it's going to make a difference and choose to do something about it. But yeah, I think one of my standard practices is I will not sleep until I read. I love reading. So.
Okay. Nice. Thanks for sharing. Kedar?
No, I'll take it to the next dimension. You've spoken about 100+ CEOs that you spoke to. CEO is also an acronym for Chief Energy Officer. And as they say, the charity and usual practices begin at home, right? So as they say, पहले अपना mask पहनिए, उसके बाद दूसरे को मदद कीजिए, right? So if you don't look after yourself, it's very difficult to be able to look after your business. And there's a story which usually I would want to tell, but the man's future have not kept in pace with that story. So this is a story about 2 brothers of a very large enterprise in India were doing roadshows in the US. And one of the brothers was really, really fat those days. So one investor told him that, you can't look after yourself. How would you look after the business? And after that, that industrialist actually thinned down, started running marathons, and then of course ran quite a few marathons. And I don't want to take the name, but you guys can remember. Unfortunately, he couldn't take care of his business, and the other one actually is flourishing really well. But the fact still remains that if you can't look after yourself, it's difficult to be able to look after your teams and the business and everything else.
Absolutely.
So I
And
agree.
some best practices that you follow?
We'll ask people to read the book so they can get 100 people's
I
experiences.
know, but if you were to just share one, what do you do to take care of
as,
yourself?
as she reads, yeah. So I think I got into breathing practices, pranayama, a few years ago. And the best joke about pranayama is I've been breathing for 50 years, just learn how to really breathe, right? And that really does a lot of, it gets your mindfulness in, it gets your anxiety under control, it gets your heartbeat under control, and that's something that I think everyone must do.
Absolutely. And thanks for sharing that. In fact, several leaders talk about various ways in which they nurture themselves. There are two things that they talk about which nurtures all four domains of energy. One of them is yoga, how it is physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. Any guesses on what the other one is? Running, yeah.
Meditation.
Yeah, golf. A lot of leaders talked about golf, saying it's physical, mental, because you need that focus. My best buddies are my golf buddies, so there is an emotional, and of course, औकात पे आ जाते हो, because one day you're right up there, next day you come back to Mother Earth. So I think there are many practices which sort of tick off on multiple boxes. It's really about, I think the big lesson that we learned from speaking to so many leaders is you will never find the time to do it. You have to make time to do it, right? So I think that's the big takeaway from that. I'll also just quickly use this opportunity. I have my friend Gitika here from, MD of Nivea, who also contributed to the book. So Gitika, you just want to share one example of how you nurture yourself?
Thanks, Rajesh. So yes, I would echo what Kedar said. Read the book. It has what I do plus what lots of other people do. It's a lovely book. It's a really delightful read. So yes, first read the book. But happy to share what I do. So I run. I really enjoy. That's my morning time. I have now diversified into strength training, given we're turning old. But I genuinely really like. I think that's the time when I'm actually able to think really unfettered, so that I really enjoy. I also like reading, especially on the weekends. So me and my two young boys, we really are all in a line on the sofa reading our own books. So that is also, I think, us time, because while we are in our own worlds, but we are still together. So I enjoy that as well. Thanks, Ram.
Thanks. And I'm also just going to tap into Nikhil, who's the MD of Perfetti, to just quickly share what you do to nurture yourself. And I think there are some common passions similar to Gitika as well.
That's the problem of coming at the end. You basically repeat the answers. I'm a runner as well. I got into strength training earlier, actually, and then running has been the last 10, 12 years. Yeah, I think I've said it before a couple of times. It's useful to kind of find something outside your workspace and then, do something where you kind of shut it all out. And coming back to India, lots of people have started asking for advice, strangely enough, what's made you successful? And the only relevant piece of advice is finding time for yourself. Yeah, it allows you to invest back in your work, and just the quality of work improves so much. And also when you're making choices of senior leadership, you're also looking at people who are not just putting in the effort. I think India, most of us are extremely hardworking, and time spent in office and so on and so forth. But you're looking at people who are doing much more outside of that and trying to get to personalities who can add value. So that's really helpful. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing. And as you can see, there is there's a common thread running there in terms of how we take care of ourselves. Really makes a difference to us. And just one other thing I want to add here is, I also find that having a passion, and I'm sure you probably resonate with it, also helps in the way you perform at work, right? So for example, photography is a passion for me. And I find that I used to be a left brain guy, engineer, analytical, and so on, but photography just opened up another side of me, right? So when I now look at a problem, I look at it from multiple perspectives, just like when you shoot, you look from different perspectives before you settle on the shot that you want to take, and so on and so forth, right? So in many ways, I'm sure it sort of feeds back into how we perform as a professional as well, yeah? The second part is really about nurturing others, right? And here, going back to the gardening analogy that we were talking about, and as a marketeer, we love our 3Ps, 4Ps, 4Cs, and so on. So we've created 4Ps here, which is really around preparing the soil. How do you set the right kind of culture? How do you set the right kind of a context in which a good garden can thrive, right? Plant the seeds. Have the right kind of people, have the right kind of behavior, the culture, and so on and so forth. So make sure you plant the right seeds. Provide water and sunshine, which is what nurturing is all about. How do we provide water and sunshine? And last but not the least, something very important, something many leaders spoke about as usually underlooked at is pull out the weeds, right? A gardener also needs to know which one is a good plant to have and which is a weed that needs to be pulled out. Now, it could be a person who sort of doesn't fit into the organization. It could be a behavior, but it's important to have the wisdom to know when and what weed to be pulled out, right? So that's the analogy we use for how you could go about nurturing others. And the qualities that came across from leaders was around humility, openness, patience, and empathy as 4 qualities required for nurturing others, what we call hope. So the question to you, Deepika, is which one sort of resonates with you and how do you see these playing out when it comes to nurturing others?
Yeah, I think what's most authentic to me is probably openness. But I find that the only real, I think the only real insurance that you have for delivering result is people. Because there's just so much that's changing, and the only way that you can actually really deliver is people. So I find that, you know, it doesn't matter which one you choose, and I guess you play by player, so it keeps changing, but the fact that you make it a priority. I also think that, you know, somehow, certainly I think when we were growing up at work, I feel a decade back, maybe the pressure, I don't know, Kedar, you know, the pressure on quarter and year results, it wasn't the way it is now. It's definitely gotten a bit more demanding. So I find on a day basis having to balance the need to nurture and be compassionate, because people just need time sometimes, and time is what business results don't allow you. So I feel the constant challenge between ensuring that you're, you know, nurturing or compassionate, whatever's your word for it, but you're also driving accountability. I think that's probably a balance you keep, you know, you got to keep trying to find.
Absolutely. No, thanks for sharing that. Kedar?
When I saw this model in your book, I said, Rajesh and Neeru are talking about this because these 4 things don't seem to be in abundance anymore. Yeah, we talk about stuff which we are missing. So either we are missing humility, or we are missing openness, or patience and empathy. So in fact, I can't say which one is the most important, because the combination of hope is truly important, right? Now, many a time it does happen that people tend to become more humble as they go up, right? Because Dan Kahneman says that, you know, I'm not as sure about things as I used to be when I was less knowledgeable, right? True. And that's true, because that's the way it should be. And that brings humility. But many a time, जब हम कहते हैं ना चाय से केतली गरम, so people who work for you are actually less humble than you are, and hence your imagery becomes like that. So you have to be really cautious about how you make it possible for people to connect with you. Second is, I like the word compassion better than empathy, but in hope, E fits better than C. But you know, an empathetic leader might cry with you. A compassionate leader will solve for you. So that's what works for me. And patience is a virtue in the world of Q-commerce, and where we want our, you know, kurkure delivered in less than 10 minutes, and hospital van wouldn't come in 10. Yeah. I think we are going in wrong direction anyway.
Yeah. In fact, sorry, you were saying something?
No,
go ahead.
No, I'm saying if I'm here, I want to definitely make one point. I think, well, you got to nurture all kinds, but I think that I think nurturing diverse groups is really important. So I definitely want to make a plug for, I feel, in the workforce, how are you going to nurture, I mean, you should nurture all kinds, so don't mind it, but I think you have to be a bit sensitive to women. So I feel especially, and I don't know if you see it more mid-management up, you know, when life stage needs go up for women, but I find that it's okay to be a bit extra out, especially to support women when they're at, you know, coming back after children, or when children are at specific need stages. Yeah. So just making a plug to be a bit more conscious about it.
That's absolutely true, right? And I think the plug well made. In fact, just on the compassion, since both of you use the word, so in the book, one of the things we say is leaders are forever balancing out the and, right? And we talk about 3 ands in the book. So one and is around discipline and flexibility, right? So have the discipline to nurture yourself and nurture others, but be flexible because things might, change and things can be, a little bit fluid, right? So that's one part. The second one is between ambition and compassion, right? So none of these is meant to be fluffy stuff that you do just to feel good or anything. You have a business to run, you have KPIs to deliver, etc. So be ambitious, have those targets, but be kind to yourself and be kind to others. Because again, many things can come in the way of, success versus failure. It's really also about the journey as much as, what you're trying to achieve. So one of the things we talk about is indeed, are you being kind enough to yourself and kind to others? And just to close the loop, the third one we talk about is self-orientation and other orientation. How do we balance out between the two? Because that becomes very important as well, right? So moving on to the last piece, which is really about how do we nurture others? And again, here we've created an acronym called MILE, going the last mile to nurture others, which is really around mentoring and coaching, inspiring, listening, and empowering. So mentoring and coaching, as you know, are we inculcating a mentoring and coaching mindset in the organization? Are we sort of paying it forward? Inspiring is about role modeling, walking the talk. The listening is about, am I actively listening versus just paying lip service, setting aside time and space for listening. And empowering is about really delegating, providing them with the resources to sort of truly empower your team so that they can grow. So these are the 4 things that we speak about. Maybe this time, Kedar, I'll start with you. Any practices that you follow to nurture others?
Yeah, I thought something that I've been trying for a while now, and it's worked very well for me, and I thought I'll talk to you guys about it. Nurturing others is a part of being a line manager. And I'm thinking that all of you are line managers, or you are a team and you have a line manager. You can only do that well if you get to know the individual behind the role. Get to know the people well, but do the objective assessment of performance equally well. And don't mix the two. People get to usually make the opinion of the person depending on how they perform, and then you can't nurture them.
The biases that
there is always a bias. So think about the individual in their entirety, about where they come from, what are their wants, what are their wishes, what's their family background, why are they working, what drives them, what's the purpose, what makes them click. And then, having understood the person, then you do the objective performance management any which way. Then it helps you to connect, saying what are the feedback you need to give for performance development of those individuals. And many a time, even if you have to weed them out, weed of a garden could be a plant of another.
True.
And it grows very, very well in another circumstance.
Absolutely.
And that decision then helps you really grow and nurture people. And MILE is a great acronym to tell you how to do it.
Thanks, Kedar. Deepika?
Yeah, I think maybe 2 things come to mind. I think I find that most people know. They just know. In a sense, so I feel like sometimes the really most important thing to do is, can you just give them space and awareness, I feel. And then they know. It's not like, in the workplace you're actively always having to coach somebody, but I think giving them space. But I think when I am operating with people, one of the things I've realized that I didn't do, and when I shift my perspective, it makes a really big difference, is can I approach people not from a fixed mindset, but a growth mindset. Because I'm experiencing something and I tend to react to what I'm experiencing. I may not always remember that it shifts. So just always knowing that wherever people are, they're trying to get to an amazing place, and just always have a growth mindset around people.
Absolutely.
I think that helps.
Yeah. And again, growth mindset is something that we again speak actively in the book in terms of how that can really link.
I read it. I said I read it.
I believed you that time. Yeah. So no, thanks for sharing that. And just a quick question again, Gitika. I mean, you've contributed to the book as well, and I know you're a certified coach. So just a quick thought on how that's helped you to become better at nurturing others.
Yeah, so I've done the full coaching. I haven't given the exam though. You
That's
know,
okay.
Because for me, the purpose was not the certification. It was indeed to be able to get the answers from the people that I'm coaching. And I think in a lot of our work, eventually we don't do any real work. As MDs, eventually what we are doing is ensuring our teams are empowered to, be their whole selves and therefore ask the right questions. I think coaching is very similar to that, and I feel that somewhere I wanted to move away from giving the answers, which is what we do when we are maybe middle level, to saying, okay, I ask the questions, probe them, prompt them, but eventually the answers need to come from them. So I found that very, very useful exercise.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And I think asking powerful questions is indeed a great way to sort of inspire, empower, and get them to figure out the answers for themselves. Yeah. Which really brings me to the last two pieces. And one of the things that everybody might say is, so what's so rocket science about what we saw, right? We all know this, right? The fact that we have to take care of ourselves and we have to take care of others. But then many things come in the way, right? And typically when we spoke to people, what comes in the way? Sometimes it's awareness, but usually it is, oh, I don't have time, I have long commute to make, I have this, that, and the other, and there are many excuses, right? And the whole premise is you have to make time if you think it's a priority. So one of the things we talk about, and this is my favorite model of the lot, is what we call the ASH model. How to build those habits, right? Which is everything starts with awareness. I'm aware of something, I set an intention that I need to do something about it, I start a particular action, and then over a period of time, when I do it consistently, it becomes a habit, right? So that's the ASH model to create new habits. And very often, any guesses where the biggest hump happens, where it gets stuck? Starting action. Start action. Absolutely. Awareness, I am overweight. Intention, I need to lose 10 kilos in 3 months. Start action is where sometimes it gets stuck, right? And there are a couple of ways in which, excuse me, you could look at, starting action. So for example, one of them is habit stacking. Can I stack the new habit that I want to create next to an existing good habit, right? For example, I was not very good at reading and I wanted to build reading as a habit. So my thought was, the minute I put down my toothbrush after brushing my teeth in the night, I pick up a book. So you stack a new habit that you want to create next to an existing habit that already exists. Or you could have an accountability buddy who you could use to sort of create habits, and there are many ways in which you can do it, right? So that's something that we talk about. One quick question on what is a new habit that you would like to create? I know.
New habit that I want to create, I want to hit the bed by 10. And it's not happening. I end up becoming 11, 11:30. So that's something that I want to do because I want to sleep for 7 hours for sure.
Cool. Deepika?
I've been trying to get myself to exercise. So the way I was able to do it is I said I'm getting an hour of listening to music. So it's fine.
Super.
Like I'll do what it takes to get an hour on music.
Yeah, yeah. And really the last one I wanted to leave you with is, we know all of this, but how do we then measure it? So what we've got is an assessment tool. It takes 10 minutes to fill it. I know Kedar has done it, I know Deepika has also done it, which then gives you your NQ score. So just like IQ and EQ, it gives you an NQ score, which is further broken up into NSQ and NOQ, nurturing self and nurturing others, which gives a good starting point to say where you are today and where you would like to go. Any one quick insight from the test that you took?
No, insight is, it's a quick test. But because I've done many of these over a period of time, I was almost beginning to predict where it is going. And you were nudging, all of 48 questions were nudging towards what is good for you, right? And so inside...
Oh, and nothing is rocket science. But really the thing is, can we become a little bit more mindful about it? Can we set an intentionality around it? One last interesting insight that came from talking to 100 leaders, almost all leaders are intentional about nurturing themselves. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I go to the gym. Or weekend, I play golf. So there is a lot of intentionality to it. But very few leaders talked about an intentionality for nurturing others, right? Do I set aside specific time during the day to nurture others? So I think there are opportunities for us to look into ourselves and see how we could become better at nurturing self and others. which we believe ultimately would lead to nurturing the business and growing it for long-term success. Thank you very much for being a part
Thank
of
you
this.
so much.
Thanks, Deepika.
Thank you. We should ask
And-
the audience how many people nurture themselves. No,
Good
shouldn't
question.
they raise their hand?
Yeah, how many of you actively nurture yourself on any of the 4 domains of energy? Any of you don't? Can we see some hands up? Anyone know? Don't at all?
There's many who are not sure what they're doing. Clearly.
Okay, there are some half hands I saw. And nurturing others actively? Super. Thank you so much and all the best to you on your journey of nurturing self and others. Thank you. Thanks, Kedar. Thanks, Deepika.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rajesh, Deepika, and Kedar. What a wonderful conversation. Requested to kindly wait on stage. May I invite Amia Swaroop, Partner Marketing Advisory Services, Ernst & Young LLP, to please come up and present a token of our appreciation. And also, of course, thank you to Ragini for co-moderating. What a powerful reminder that while technology may accelerate us, it's human leadership that gives direction, empathy, and meaning to growth. Let's also have a group picture.